Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let the Record Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here for Severe MMA. If you haven't watched this show before, it's basically a look at the records of the fights coming up. So obviously we have Donald Cerrone versus Conor McGregor coming up this weekend. So I'm going to take a deep dive on their records and also look a little bit at the rest of the card as well. So I'm going to look at Tapology, I'm going to look at Wikipedia, where everyone gets all their information, and just have a look at the record. Now there'll be no analysis on this show. There'll be no talking about personal lives or training camps or anything like this. This is purely records, nothing else. We've loads of other stuff on the SevereMMA podcast and on here as well, and over on our Patreon, discussing all of those things. But here, simply put, records. So let's get straight into it. And the first thing that we always do on this show is go for the Wikipedia test. So the Wikipedia test is a look at the card in general. So here's the card. And if you have a blue name, you have a Wikipedia page. So that means that you're a bit known, that people know you, that people have taken the time to write a Wikipedia page. So Grant Dawson, who's actually a good fighter, who's coming through, he doesn't have one. And there is 3 or 4 people as well on the undercard that don't have him. So all in all, that's not actually that bad. Now, it's not the strongest card in the world even, which we will get into, I'm sure, as we go through this. But the Wikipedia test is passed from right now. Right, so let's look at, obviously, Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone is the main event. And let's go straight to McGregor for a second and look at the awards he has been given and earned himself over the last while. And we'll do the same with Donald Cerrone. So he's fight of the night twice, both against Nate Diaz. Knockout of the night one time, which is kind of amazing. Knockout of the night, knockout of the night changed, so it became performance of the night, so he got a lot more, yeah, that makes sense. Third most divisional champion UFC history in featherweight and lightweight, which doesn't really say much. He's only won the one because there's so few champions there, I suppose. First Irish-born champion, obviously a big thing. Fastest title fight victory in UFC history against Jose Aldo. First simultaneous 2-division champion, which is obviously huge. Most consecutive performance at the night awards, which is also huge. And most consecutive post-fight bonuses in UFC history at 8. Third most performance of the night awards in UFC history, which is very, very good. And then you have everything else as well. And Cowboy Cerrone then, even more so, I think his records are absolutely fantastic. He's won fight of the night 6 times, knockout of the night 3 times, submission of the night twice, and then we obviously come into the new era, as I talked about, for McGregor as well, 7 times performance of the night. But this is where it gets interesting now. Most wins in UFC history, Cowboy Cerrone has at 23. Now, that's down to because he fights so much, but it's his longevity and his ability as well, 100%. Most finishes in UFC history in 16, which is also very interesting, and most post-fight bonuses in UFC history as well with 18. So both these guys are known for exciting fights. Both these guys are known for winning and getting finishes as well. Most bouts as well, obviously another thing I mentioned with Cerrone there. Second most wins in UFC lightweight history. Obviously this is welterweight. Third most finishes in UFC lightweight history as well, and most knockdowns in UFC history. McGregor's been knocked down once, I believe, against Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, I'm sure Cerrone will be looking to do it again. Right, so a quick look at Cerrone's record here on Wikipedia before we move over to Topology and look at it further down. You see here he has 50 fights with his wins coming 10 by knockout, 17 by submission, 9 by decision. So obviously a good spread there. A lot of submission wins. When we get to McGregor in a second, we'll discuss that. Losses 6 by knockout, which we'll also get when we go to McGregor. 1 loss by submission and 6 by decision. So let's jump over to Conor McGregor here and look at his record in that way with finishes and everything like that. So he has 25 fights, which is exactly half. 18 of those he's won 21 obviously and lost 4. 18 of those wins coming by way of knockout, so that's obviously huge for Conor McGregor. 1 by submission and 2 by decision, and in all of his 4 losses in his career have been by submission. So Donald Cerrone, lots of submission wins. Conor McGregor, lots of submission losses. Conor McGregor, obviously lots of knockout wins, and 6 knockout losses for Donald Cerrone. So let's move over here to Tapology. And as we know, the main event, 170 pounds, 5-minute rounds. Conor McGregor obviously ranked at number 16 on Tapology in lightweight, and Donald Cerrone number 9, but you can kind of leave that to a side for a second. So let's look at Conor McGregor first. As I mentioned, 21-4 is his record, fighting out of SBG Ireland, as we can see here. Current win streak, obviously lost his last fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov, and that was on the 6th of October 2018, fighting out of Dublin, as we know. Reach 74 inches. The last time I think I said 74 centimeters here, so that'd be pretty small. But a height 5'9", and obviously as well, I must mention here, this is me just calling out these numbers. These numbers are wrong. That's not me. Blame Topology, blame Wikipedia. Don't blame me. But I'm just reading them. I'm like Ron Burgundy, as I always say here, just kind of reading out these numbers. But we've talked about all of that anyway. So let's go down and look a little bit deeper at his record as well. So they list the boxing match here as well against Floyd Mayweather, but his last fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov, obviously in the lightweight division, one of only 2 fights in the lightweight division. He lost that by round 4 submission. He's won before that, arguably his best performance against Eddie Alvarez. Won against Nate Diaz at 170 pounds. So these 2 fights against Nate Diaz were both at 170 pounds. Won one, lost one. 155 pounds, won one, lost one in the UFC as well. And he's undefeated as a featherweight, as we get to in a second, in the UFC. But obviously those are we can leave the Floyd Mayweather fight out of it. That's obviously boxing, so it doesn't really count here. But if we look at those 4 fights, he's, Conor McGregor, what is he, 2-2 in his last 4 fights? So I'm sure he'll want to be getting that record back a bit and getting a little bit better. Before that, Jose Aldo, 13 seconds, fastest knockout as we mentioned earlier in UFC title fight history. Chad Mendes knocked him out as well in the second round. Knocked Seaver out in the second round. Knocked Dustin Poirier out in the first round, who's up at 155 pounds now and talking about fighting 170 pounds as well. Brandon knocked him out in the first round. Max Holloway went to a decision. So lots of people talk about Conor McGregor's durability and or maybe not durability, but his cardio and his ability to keep going. He won that. He won that fight, and also every fight that's gone to the distance in Conor McGregor's career, he has won. So he's beat Max Holloway and he beat Nate Diaz as well. So that's an interesting look, I suppose, at his record in one bit. Coming into the UFC, then obviously Marcus Brimage was his first win. Won in the first round there. In his Cage Warriors career, at the end of it, beat Ivan Buchinger to win the lightweight title there, I believe, the lightweight title there, and Dave Hill to win the featherweight one, winning that in the second round. Look at all these stoppages here. First round. Artur Sawinski, lots of these aren't listed straight out, but Joseph Duffy, his other loss in, that was by submission. You'll be able to see that in Wikipedia as well, and Artemi Sitinkov as well by submission. So we get down a little bit further here. One amateur fight, which I believe is on the SevereMMA YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, but it's on YouTube somewhere anyway. So as we look before, his wins, 21 wins, 4 losses, and we'll just quickly again look at his wins: 18, 1 and 2, 18 by KO, and losses all 4 by submission. So let's go back and look at Donald Cerrone in the same way. And Donald Cerrone, obviously 36 and 13, as we'll see here. My internet's a bit slow. 36 and 13, currently on a 2-loss streak. Fighting out of Jackson Wink. That's actually incorrect. I don't think he's with Jackson Wink anymore, but he's fighting out of his own BMF ranch now in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 74-inch reach, which is 1 below McGregor, if I'm not mistaken. I can remember 74 or 73. He is, sorry, McGregor 74, if I'm not mistaken, and 6'1", so a bit of height there for Donald Cerrone. Head coach Greg Jackson, I don't believe that's his head coach anymore, so maybe give out to apology to update that. Okay, his last 2 fights, Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson, that one ended via the eye injury. As we know, he blew out his nose at the end of round 2, and he was knocked out against Justin Gaethje. Before that, in some fights, maybe people weren't expecting him to win, or maybe he had a 50-50 chance in him. I went to Alexander Hernandez, Mike Perry did a good job of winning those. Alexander Hernandez, even a southpaw who switches stances like McGregor does, and obviously not as good a fighter as McGregor, but not a million miles away from the sort of fighter Conor McGregor is. But he won that fight, knocked him out in the second round, won a decision against Ala Quinta, and won by submission. So we see his last 3 wins: decision, KO, submission. So that tells you all you need to know about Donald Cerrone. He can win in lots of different ways. Lost to Leon Edwards by unanimous decision as well. Beat Yancy Medeiros. You see all the names here as we rattle through it. Lost to Darren Till and Robbie Lawler and Jorge Masvidal before that, and we beat Matt Brown, Rick Story, Patrick Cote, Alex Oliveira, with all different sorts of wins. You see a triangle choke, we see punches. Lost to Rafael Dos Anjos. Now this is a fight I think it's important to look at. This is the right one, isn't it? Yeah. So this was for the UFC Lightweight Championship. So a lot has talked about Donald Cerrone and his ability on the big day, and this is an important part of his record. That's 1:06 into round 1. He lost that fight, so that's the biggest fight of his life, and he lost it very, very quickly. So that's an interesting one, I think. Before that, obviously the run of his life, probably beating McDessie, Vincent Henderson, former UFC champion, who I believe had beaten him earlier in his career. We'll get to that in a second, but he beat Miles Jury, Eddie Alvarez as well. Those two fights as well, look at the dates. The 3rd of January, the 18th of January. So those two fights were 15 days apart. He went to a decision, won a unanimous decision in both of those fights. So that tells you all you need to know about Donald Cerrone, I suppose. Edson Barboza as well, an interesting win here. Here when you look at, McGregor, a very striking based fighter, and Don Cerrone was able to beat him and choke him out in the first round. So, a lot of people think, and probably rightly so, looking at the record, that Don Cerrone has a big advantage on the ground. And maybe not the last time, but one of the times he fought like a really dangerous striker in Barboza, he took him down, he ended up choking him anyway in the first round. Did the same to Mike Perry, as we saw earlier on as well. But look at Anthony Pettis, he knocked him out in the first round. So you can find whatever you want, I suppose, if you look hard enough at Donald Cerrone's record. Beat Jeremy Stephens, the hardest hitting 145-pounder world. Lost to Nate Diaz as well, in a fight where he got into maybe a mental battle with Nate Diaz before that. So we'll see if Conor McGregor does that here coming up on fight week. Dennis Sievert, the other guy that Conor McGregor has fought as well. And we got through the record. That Vincent Henderson fight I mentioned, coming back and lost to Vincent Henderson twice actually. These are all his WEC fights. So let's go down to the bottom here before we move on. As I said, 36, 13 and 1 no contest, which I believe was for his failed drug test back in the day. Overturned by the NCAA. Does it say why here? I don't think so, but it was a failed drug test, I believe. So his losses then, as we go down here. These are his wins. So we go. We look at his wins first. So 10 by KO, as I mentioned earlier. 17 by submission, 9 by decision, and then we have 6 by KO. His losses, 1 by submission and 6 by decision. So let's just take a quick look through the rest of the fights. I'm not going to go through them like I did with these, but we'll have a quick look. The co-main event: Holly Holm, former UFC bantamweight champion of the world, taking on Raquel Pennington, who has fought for the title at 135 pounds. Holly Holm 12-5, Pennington 10-7. Alexei Olnik, one of the most gifted in terms of submission ability in the UFC, fighting at heavyweight, 265 pounds. Look at all those fights there. What is it, 71? This is his 72nd fight, fighting someone with only 11 fights in Morris Green. So that should be a fun fight. Claudia Gadelha, former 2-time challenger for the UFC title, I believe, fighting Alexa Grasso, who's a very, very good fighter at 115 pounds. Claudia Gadelha in her 22nd fight coming up. Alexa Grasso in her 15th. Anthony Pettis, who I mentioned there earlier on as well, former UFC lightweight champion, 22-9 at 155 pounds, back here again, fighting Diego Ferreira at 16-2. So a big fight for Ferreira. If he can beat Pettis, it's always a good name to have on your record. And that's the main card. So let's have a quick look at the main card again. Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone, Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, Alexei Olnik, Morris Green, Claudia Gadelha, Alexa Grasso, Anthony Pettis against Diego Ferreira. And then some big fights as well on the undercard. Macy Barber, the real up-and-comer that everyone's talking about, 8-0 at 125 pounds, fighting the first ever 125 pound woman to step inside the octagon, I believe, Roxanne Modafferi, who fought for the title before. She's a lot of experience, but you'd have to favour Macy Barber in that one. Andre Touchy-Feely, the best nickname in the game, fighting Sadiq Youssef. That's for me the second best fight in this card. I think that's a fantastic fight. Feely has improved so much at 145 pounds, and Youssef 10-1 looks a real animal. I believe he trained in SPG before, so he might get a little bit of support from the Irish crowd if they're there. Another huge prospect for me. I really like this guy's on Team Sheehan. Nasrat Hakparast, very, very good. Drew Dober, 30 fights as you see there, a veteran in the game, been around for a long time, so that's a big test for Hakparast. Chaz Skelly, tough, gritty guy against another prospect coming through, Grant Dawson, at 145 pounds. 205 fight here. Alexa Kamaru, 5-0, fighting Justin Lede, 9-2. Tim Elliott, former title challenger as well, at 125 pounds, fighting Askar Askarov. Another guy coming through, 10-1. Odie Osborne, 8-2, fighting Brian Keller. Great guy, Brian Keller, always on Twitter talking and breaking down fights. A real good mind for the game at 135 pounds, so that should be a fun fight. And then the opening fight of the night, Sabina Mazo, 7-1 against JJ Aldrich at 125 pounds, 8-3 at JJ Aldrich. And she also wears the Irish fight kit, so I'm sure if the Irish fans see her coming out, they'll be supporting her. So that's it. We'll have a quick look at the main event again. Obviously, Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone at 175 pounds over 5 minute rounds. And that's it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Just a quick look at the records there. Rather than, every show that we do, we seem to get into who's going to win, how's he going to throw this left hook, what's going to happen, who's going to buy the pay-per-view, how much is it going to sell. And I think it's good to kind of have a look at it a different way, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Follow me on Twitter at SeanSheehanBA. Smash the like button, subscribe, follow at SevereMMA, SevereMMA.com all week, and our Patreon, especially patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Loads of events. Some of the biggest MMA journalists in the world are going to be previewing Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone over there this week, so please sign up. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.